So much praying. So much praying. What else are you going to do all day? Can't eat, Greetings, hero. It is I, your friendly neighborhood rabbi, and I'm here today to talk to you about the prayer services of Yom Kippur. We're going to run through the day about those 5 services that we talked about before and say what's unique about Yom Kippur to these prayer services that we don't have on Shabbat or any other holiday or weekday prayer. But first, if you're joining us for the first time, this lesson is part of a 31-day Jewish fall holiday challenge. If you feel challenged or challengey, make certain that you click on the link that appears first in the show notes below. You'll get a downloadable guide to all the major Jewish holidays this year. You'll receive links to all 31 of the lessons of this challenge. But enough about that. It's time to talk about the prayer services of Yom Kippur and what's unique about them compared to Shabbat or other holidays or weekday services. The first is something that we talked about in the last video, which is Kol Nidre. Kol Nidre, or the annulment of vows, specifically those religious vows or oaths which invoke the name of God, bind God to a promise that in our human weakness we may not keep. That kicks off our Erev Yom Kippur Mariv service. That's our evening service. However, because Kol Nidre is considered a form of legal testimony, it has to happen before sundown because we don't do legal testimony on holidays, which start after sundown. So make sure you get there early for Kol Nidre because the song's usually pretty, even though it's like legal testimony. I almost forgot to mention that before you even hear Kol Nidre, you're going to probably walk into the building and somebody's going to hand you a book, or there'll be books close to where you're sitting, and that book is not your usual book. Just like Rosh Hashanah, we're still using the Machzor. A Machzor is a special kind of prayer book that has the prayers, like the regular prayers you say during the day, plus all the additions for the days of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and some other stuff in case there's like probably Tashlich in there and home blessings that you might recite, special Kiddush for Rosh Hashanah. So this is not your usual prayer book. Synagogues take these and distribute them and put them amongst the pews. Pew, 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 pew. For people to use during the high holy days. Then after the holidays, they put them back in the storage closet and the regular prayer books come out. And the Machzorim or Machzors usually contain not just the prayers, but also the specific Torah and Haftarah readings for the holiday. This is true for Rosh Hashanah, and it's just as true for Yom Kippur. Okay, so you got your Machzor, you got Kol Nidre, you have Mariv, put the Machzor back, go home, come back the next day, and you're there for Shachrit, morning prayers. Morning prayers often contain or are preceded by Slichot. These are collections of penitential prayers that we talked about for the month of Elul. We read those for part of Elul or all of Elul, depending on where you're from, to prepare for Rosh Hashanah. And now we read some again in the beginning of the Yom Kippur service. Day is all about penitence, people. Again, like Rosh Hashanah, there are piyutim, there are liturgical poems that are added to the service to make it prettier and possibly longer. Like I said, what else are you going to do today? Can't do anything fun. Like drink water. There's also an insertion into the services that's unique to Yom Kippur, and that is the vidui. Vidui means confessing or confession, and as the culmination of a holiday that reminds us and focuses our minds toward repentance, we repeat this vidui or confessional service several times throughout the day. This is often done standing in reverence to God, and what you may see that you don't normally see during the year is people beating their chest like this. Not like a big Tarzan gorilla one, but more like when they say these Hebrew words that usually end in nu or amnu or radnu. Get to that in a minute. When they say it, they tap their chest with their fist as they say these words. And this is a kind of symbolic self-affliction as we confess these sins. And now I noted that these words often end in nu. Nu? This is an old prayer, not a new prayer. This is a little Hebrew grammatical trick for you. If a word ends in nu, it's often a second person plural verb, meaning we are confessing things that we did. You may be thinking of confessional as something that you go into a booth and you confess things to a religious intercessor, or even if you're praying directly to God and saying, I did this and I'm sorry, I did this, I did that. There's plenty of room for that in spontaneous prayer within Judaism. However, in this part of the service, where we're making a public confession, we don't talk about the things that I did, we talk about the things that we did. We are sorry for treating each other unfairly. We are sorry for not trying hard enough to help the poor. And that's not to spread the blame around so that each individual gets in trouble less. That's a testimony to the sense that every Jew is responsible for every other Jew. If one of us makes a mistake, all of us are somehow complicit in that because we need to support that person so that they act better. And I need help from other people in the community so that I can act better. Like I've said before, this is a very introspective, individualistic holiday. However, there is strength in doing that kind of work surrounded by members of your community. Because as you try to improve yourself over the coming year, you set the intention at this point that there are other people you are going to be able to lean on to help you, and that you are going to offer your help for other people to improve. That's why our annual public out loud confessional is all about how we can do better. And with one voice, we ask God to forgive not just me, but all of us. Another thing that's unique to Yom Kippur that I talked about in a video a couple of days ago is the Avada Service. This is an additional service inserted into the Musaf Amidah that talks about the time of temple service going all the way back to Aaron, Moses' brother, the first high priest. And it discusses and we meditate on the procedure by which a priest would first ask forgiveness for his own sins and then the sins of the collective priesthood. And then having cleared that out of the way, take responsibility for atoning for the sins of the entire people Israel. And also during the service, we have what's called the Grand Aleinu. During the Grand Aleinu, you see something you don't often see throughout the year, and that is full prostration bowing. Most faith traditions have a kind of choreography to them. A lot of people go like this and put their head down when they pray. In some Christian churches, people kneel, and there's even like a little fold-down bench for that. In Islam, many prayers are accompanied by what's called full prostration. That is getting all the way down on the ground, on your hands and knees, forehead touching the ground, in a position which signifies complete submission and obedience to God. For the most part, Jews don't bow their heads and pray. We don't kneel so much. Sometimes we bow at the waist, sometimes we, move around a little bit, and we don't do the full prostration bowing almost never. But on Yom Kippur, during a certain part of the service, you will see people kind of getting out of their chairs into the aisles where there's room, and they'll get down all the way on the ground, knees, elbows, wrists, forehead on the ground. This is the one time of year that we do this on our holiest day of the year, take on a position of complete submission and penitence to God. And if you're not used to this during the rest of the year, it can actually be a very powerful experience on this Day of Atonement. Especially by that point, you're probably a little bit lightheaded from the fasting. All the more so, it can be a spiritual experience. And finally, let's talk about the last service of Yom Kippur, and that is Ne'ilah, aka Nila, where the rabbis imagine that the gates of prayer and all the prayers that we're praying are coming to a close and locking. That's what the word Ne'ilah means. This is it, people. This is your last chance. Say you're sorry to the people around you. Accept the apologies. Accept the atonement. Forgive the people who are asking it of you. Make your final confessions. Make your final atonements with God. This is your last chance of this holiday season. And to accommodate that, the Nila service has an Amidah, a standing prayer service. It's the only time of the year where we have 5 Amidahs in one day. And Nila is the last one, and it's usually longer than a normal Amidah, and everybody's standing up the whole time. The Ark is often left open so that you can see the Torah scrolls, kind of like the gates of heaven being left open, and that Amidah is your chance. One thing that many congregations do during this final Amidah that I think is a beautiful tradition is that they invite people to take turns to personally come up to the Ark and stand close to the Torah scrolls to say their prayers with their family in a very intimate way at this ending point of the holiest day of the year. A line will form on the side of the room and individuals and families will go up one at a time. It's a great family moment. It can be a great private moment if you're there by yourself. Being that close to the Torah scrolls, singing going on all around you. You've been fasting for 24 to 25 hours at this point. It can be really super powerful. So if they're doing that where you are and you have the chance to do it, I highly recommend you do it. If you're comfortable, you do you, don't miss it. After this part of the service, everybody goes back to their seating area. The Ark is closed and everybody gets to sit down for the first time in a very long time. By this point, it's either at or very close to sundown. Everybody's excited that Yom Kippur is almost over. You have a few more parts of the service. Sometimes people will do Havdalah, that service with candles and wine that will mark the end of a holy day. The final thing on Yom Kippur is a Tekiah Gedolah. That is a long blast of the shofar. The high holy days are over. It's like the last whistle of the Super Bowl. The book of life is closed and sealed for the year. Everything you could have done for the prior year is done, and you have a clean slate to start over in the coming year. At this point, a few people may hang out to do the Mariv service, the evening prayer service. I'm just being realistic when I say at this point, most people are booking for the exits. Sometimes the community will have like little cups of juice and granola bars for people who are just really on the verge. And then people make their way home or to one another's home for a festive meal. This is called breaking the fast. If it sounds like breakfast, where do you think they got it? So that's it for this video, hero. These are all the different features of Yom Kippur prayer services that you won't see any other time during the year. I'm super grateful to learn with you about this. Service. If you want to learn more with me, make sure you're signed up for the 31-day Jewish Fall Holiday Challenge. To do that, if you haven't already, click on the first link you see in the show notes below, or mash this handy orange square over here, and you'll get your downloadable holiday guide, links to all the videos in the challenge. Next time, we're going to talk about the assigned Torah readings for Yom Kippur, including a story about a big fish. And until then, hero, peace. Pew, 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 pew. Go home.